I did a thing. I moved these compost bins from back there to back here inside the veg garden, right behind the greenhouse. So I will continue to use, well, I will use these now, or continue to use these, except I won't have to walk another 80 feet that way to go get compost. These will actually be here in the back of the veg garden. I'm already starting to fill them up. Let's take a quick look. That's lemongrass that I cut down out in the flower garden. Needed to get cut down. It was all turning brown, so I cut it down, put it in here. There's kitchen stuff that I'm already gathering. That'll go in here. Of course, cardboard, anything that breaks down, biodegrades. I'm still using the large compost bins that I built out behind the garage. They're kind of foolish. So I think I'm going to let them start rotting down, doing their things, composting obviously throughout the winter, and then I'll probably use them early spring for various projects, and I will bring you along for all of that. Now let's move on with what we're doing today. Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's another fine, cloudy, cool day here in Easton, North Carolina. Winter is almost upon us, and of course it does get cold. Winter is upon many of you right now. I was just looking at few pictures of some people over in the UK. They've got snow. I believe there's some people up in the north there. They've either gotten a dusting or an accumulation already. And of course, as winter progresses, it's only going to continue more. So many of us have stopped gardening. I, in Growing Zone 8A, well, I can continue to work in and around the garden pretty much throughout the whole year. There are days in February and January which are just too cold for me to go outside. For instance, in January, I will be planting the pawpaw trees that I've spoken about many a times on this channel. They will finally be going out in the orchard, and that'll be a whole video unto itself because I have to give them somewhat special care and treatment. So the pawpaw trees will be going out into the orchard, and I'm sorry about the sun, it's doing its thing. And of course, there are many things to be planted that I can plant during the winter and I should plant before the spring. For instance, poppy seeds. I have a plan for trying to get poppies into the ground or on the ground and doing a thing, and I'll probably do a video on that, or maybe a short, I'm not sure yet, but that will be happening. There's beds that still need to be expanded, and I can work on that now, and this way by the time the springtime comes along, they're pretty much ready to go. The cardboard that I used to create the beds is pretty rotted, or at least to the point where it's a soft, pulpy mess that I can just easily cut through if I need to, which I probably won't, but that's a whole nother story. Of course, I am growing things in the greenhouse this winter, or I'm attempting to grow things in the greenhouse this winter. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, click that bell icon to be notified when I do post up a new video, so you can see if I'm successful or not, or how that goes. Again, there's many projects that need to be done around the garden, and the winter time sometimes is the best time to do those things because of the cooler temperatures and things like that. Again, if you're in a climate where that's, where you're under snow and stuff, that's, obviously not an option. All that being said, today's video is not sponsored by anybody, although I'd like it to be sponsored by somebody one day. But today we're going to be talking about tool maintenance. Try to keep this real short and real quick, because it's kind of a boring subject and topic, but one I thought I'd touch on because it's something I have to do, and if you haven't done it already, maybe now's the time. And again, if there's snow outside, go into your garage if you have a garage or any covered space where maybe you can do this. Let me start off with something real quick that many of us have and we use all the time, all year round, and we can do. Lawnmower blades. I have a set for bagging, two sets for bagging, 2 sets for mulching. And they get beat up a lot here on the property because I have rocks for my driveway, and if I run over the driveway, it gets, and then there's other things that can wind up dulling your blade throughout the year. So, real simple, now's a good time to turn around and either buy a new set for your mower, whether it's a ride-on or a push mower or whatever it is, or turn around and do what I'll do, because I can still get quite a bit of life out of these. And this is a blade I've already taken off one of my mowers. I believe this is the ride-on mower here. And I don't know if you can see this. So if this will focus, the camera will focus. But there is a edge here. And again, I don't know if you could see, but we got some dings. And it's all scratched up. Simply, I'm just going to take a metal file. Not right now, because what you really should do is either fasten this down to a table, or if you have a vise, put it into the vise. But then just simply turn around and actually just go with the, there you go. Just go along the edge, try to file out those nicks and try to give an edge back to the mower blade. It doesn't have to be razor sharp. Be careful, obviously you don't want to cut yourself, but you know, clean up your mower blades. You can actually probably reuse them quite a few times. This is a newer one. I have a older one which has bigger dings in it, but I can probably still get into the season out of it, and that'll save me a little bit of money. The next thing I'm going to talk about is, yes, it's a rake. This rake was my grandfather's rake. It's nothing special. As far as I can tell, it was probably purchased in a hardware store a gajillion billion years ago. My estimate, my guess is that this is probably close to, I'm 50 now, I'm going to say at least 60 to 70 years old, but it still holds up and it does what I want to do, and it's probably one of my favorite rakes. Again, this is just one of your standard garden rakes, metal tines. You know, some of the tines are a little bent, but earlier this year I turned around and I gave it a good brushing down with a metal brush, and then I coated the whole thing in Rust-Oleum. I just got my can of black spray paint Rust-Oleum, sprayed it down, and that will prevent the tines from rusting or continuing to rust, because they were getting a tad rusty. And the other thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to coat the handle with linseed oil. Now I've already taken some sandpaper and I've gone over this, and I've just tried to smooth any rough spots out. I mean, again, 70 years old. It's been used a billion times, and just by use of using it with your hands, it just tends to get pretty smooth. But I went over it with a little sandpaper, and then I'll just coat it with a little bit of linseed oil, which will soak into the wood and help preserve this handle for many years to come, hopefully, as long as I continue to maintain it. Speaking of maintaining it, as you know, I have a small collection of Sneebor tools. I love Sneebor tools. I discovered them, I can't remember how I discovered them years ago, but I bought my first shovel and it was wonderful. Sneebor tools are a little more expensive than, let's say, Home Depot or Lowe's big box store tools, and that's mainly because they're handmade and they're made over in the Netherlands. So they're not mass produced in super large quantities like a shovel that you get at the big box store. That's made in China in a machine with really bad materials. Maybe plastic handles or just really cheap metal that winds up rusting on you. Sneebor tools have stainless steel metal features, brass rivets, and then of course these wonderful wood handles. And just like the rake that's 70 years old that my grandfather had, these tools, again, if maintained properly, should last you a lifetime. I know this sounds like a Sneebor ad, but just as with the rake, I can just go over this with a little bit of sandpaper just to maybe smooth out any soft, rough edges, if there are any, knock off any dirt, and then turn around and give these a coating of linseed oil. And when I give it the coating of linseed oil, I'll just put it onto a rag, wipe the tool down, and then let it sit for about 24 hours for the wood to soak in that oil. Real quick word on linseed oil. If you use linseed oil to wipe down your tools, like I'm doing here today, then just be careful and don't take that rag once you're done with it and throw it into the trash can. It tends to heat up and it can cause fires, basically. I've almost had it done myself where I picked up a rag that I stopped using, and it was sitting someplace all crumpled up for a few minutes, and it started getting warm. And I could see that, again, if I was in a container, really heating up and possibly causing a fire. So the rag I will use today, I will turn around and give a thorough rinse out, and I will let sit air dry outside overnight. It's not going to be in a container where it could then cause other things to catch on fire and then fire bad and burn things down. We don't want that. The other thing, real quick, the Sneebor tools, and perhaps you could do this maybe with another quality tool that you may have, is Sneebor recommends, for instance, this is really dirty, so I can just give this a hose off. But again, stainless steel, so it's not really going to rust. But again, Sneebor recommends that you turn around and oil the surface. It can't hurt, and it can only help prevent rust. But also if you feel that your blade on your shovel perhaps is getting, what's the word I'm looking for, dull? Words hard. You could take something like a sharpening stone. This came from Sneebor tool maintenance kit. Jesus. And you can just simply, run it over it. Again, it's a shovel. It doesn't need to be super sharp, but if it feels very rounded, it's not going to cut into the ground that nicely when you need it to. So maybe just go over it a little bit if you need to. If you don't need to, don't do it. And of course, I've done videos in the past, and many other YouTubers have done videos. Now at the end of the seasons, of the growing seasons, again, you may want to wash out your pots if you already haven't done it. If you feel like you need to wash out your pots, I'm sort of on the fence. I've been hearing pros and cons both ways, or it's unnecessary. Obviously, I think if you had a pot that something was diseased or dying in, you may want to just give it a wash out, just to, again, remove anything that may contaminate the next plant. So if you don't wash it out, then whatever fungus or bacteria or whatever that killed that plant was in that pot will obviously transfer to the next plant that you put into that pot, unless you maybe wash it out. Again, there's other videos on YouTube that go in much more detail about that, because some of them recommend use some sort of bleach or soap solution. Some of them just say just do water. Whatever it is, I did a video a few years ago about that. So now's the time that you may also want to do that. I do have a shovel real quick. Let me show you this. So here's a shovel that was bought in a big box store. And as you can see, it's a little rusty. And part of that is because I turn around and I leave my tools outside sometimes when I shouldn't. And it's my fault. And maybe some of you do the same thing. But again, to extend the life of this, what I've already done is I've sanded down the handle. I'm going to coat this with just a little coat of linseed oil, let it sit for 24 hours. And right now, I'm just going to give this quick spray of some Rust-Oleum. And it'll just slow down the rusting of this shovel. So hopefully then I can get a few more years out of this shovel before it finally rusts through. You take care of your tools take care of you, or something like that, right? So that's really what I have to cover with tool maintenance. Obviously, if your tool handles are made out of fiberglass or plastic or even metal, you really don't have to worry. If they're made out of metal, yeah, just be careful what kind of metal they're made of. You may have to turn around and, again, do something like a Rust-Oleum spray paint to prevent them from rusting. If they're made out of aluminum, you don't have to worry about it rusting. Again, just probably clean off your tools if you haven't already and put them away, and start dreaming about next year. So that's going to do it for me today. If you don't follow me over on Instagram, go give a follow on Instagram. If you haven't checked out my website, growinggreenfinger.com, please go check out my website, growinggreenfinger.com. Got all sorts of information about the garden. I have a little blog. If you don't know already, there's a community tab when you're looking at the YouTube channel page, and if you click on that community tab, there's, sometimes I post up behind the scenes or things that are going on in the garden, things that I normally won't talk about here necessarily. I think that's about it. Oh, please check out all the links below if you haven't already. I think that's about it for today. Any questions, comments, etc., please leave them below, and I'm going to catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.